So hello, welcome back to LauraO'Brien.business, and this is myself, Laura O'Brien, and I am a successful author and spiritual entrepreneur who runs a multi-stream business in Irish pagan publishing and education. So we're here doing some free 15-ish minute consultations, and we have Jospeh here. So Jospeh, do you want to tell us where you are and what you're about, what type of business you're in, where you are in the world, all that stuff?
I'm in New Orleans, and I own a spiritual store here in like a physical location. But I guess primarily I'm like a tarot reader. Like I do a lot of tarot and astrology and Lenormand, different card reading, stuff like that. We run also a magical school as well out of from the shop and from the location. And I also do like directing for our local pagan pride for the event, uh, the annual event. So like what I'm trying to figure out is I have to basically flip everything I'm doing because right now the storefront thing is just not that's not a foreseeable thing. So I'm trying to understand like your model is so robust and it has like kind of everything. I'm just trying to figure out how to kind of get to like my version of there. Um, you have like especially when it comes to content making. How do you make it? How do you decide what you're gonna what you're going to make content on?
Knowing my audience primarily. So first off, I want to come and visit you in New Orleans. It is probably the only place in America that I would. Well, no, I like Connecticut. I like the community that's up there, but and I've had some good times in California, but I've never been to New Orleans, and it's been on my magical, you know, and just to be clear, I don't travel, right? I am very, very, very connected to Ireland. So when I say I want to go and visit someone, it's like it's up there. so so yeah, I don't. Anyway, that's rambling. But anyway, um, how do I decide what kind of content is? So I have that three-phase business model that really everything comes back to. You've got community, service, offer, right? Most people, when they go into business, they start with the offer. And I was kind of lucky in that I fell into it because I started in pagan community when, as soon as they'd let me in, basically when I was 18, and I'd been reading books for a couple of years at that point, and it was like, nobody would, thankfully, nobody would touch me till I turned 18, it's like, and then I fell in with a very good coven, a Wiccan coven actually at the time, so, who were very involved in the Irish pagan community. So like that was where I kind of cut my teeth on figuring out, what people wanted, what the problems were, what the issues were, because they were all problems and issues that I was having, right? So like for example, one of the classes that I particularly love is called Decolonizing Your Druidry and Spiritual Practice, and that is such a hardcore topic for me, because I've come up against it time and time again, personally, as well as like other people, seeing other people have problems with it and seeing people run into problems with it from the point of view of appropriating, culture and the colonial attitudes that they still have that they're not even aware of, and it blocks their spirituality, it blocks their progress. So I'm not just saying like from a social justice kind of point of view or politically correct or anything. I'm saying like it is a genuine problem for people when they are being blocked by these issues, for their own development as well. So topics like that are kind of almost no-brainers, right? But I I suppose what it really comes down to is I listen, I observe, and having running Facebook groups, you know, having an active social media. And we talked with Colleen about, like, you know, getting sucked into social media, and like that's definitely a problem that you kind of need to, you know, manage and monitor, right? But you can skim through social media and you can actually pick up a lot. So even if you don't run your own groups, you can go into groups, you can join groups, and just
Mhm.
watch for, like, always be watching for the, you know, what will become your frequently asked questions, right? So those topics that come up time and time again, talk to moderators in the groups, because they're going to be really pissed off with the questions that they have to keep answering, right? That's my top tip right there. Um,
Mhm.
Go and talk to the moderators in your favorite Facebook group or in your most hated Facebook group. Just send them a little private message and just say, like, you know, get the ball rolling, because they will talk. Right? You go into my Morrigan's Cave group and talk to any of the moderators in there, like, and they will tell you the things that just keep coming up time and time again, you know. Because those are the problems that people are having, you know. And yes, like, I'm laughing about it now because it's like, oh yeah, we have to answer this question again. But like, everybody coming in there is new, right? Like, everybody, it's not, they're not hearing this 100 times. They've never heard this before. They've never had an answer to that before. And, you know, and like, it's especially in a group, and I use the Morgan's Cave as an example. Like, we would be quite hardcore, I suppose, in there. Like, you know, we really have a lot of very clear boundaries, and we don't allow any of the usual kind of fluffy, fancy pagan bullshit that goes on in a lot of other groups, right? So maybe that's a bad example. But like, for the most part, moderators would actually have a lot of compassion for people coming in, and like, they're doing that job because, like, they're not getting paid for it for the most part. I do take care of my moderators, I will say. It's important to do, right? When they're working for you, it's very important to do, part of your community building. But you know, like, most people will be aware of, like, the newcomers coming in and just what their issues are. And when you start to get a feel for that, like, you really, and especially when you're coming at it from a compassionate place, you can really start to see, you know, you match that with whatever skills and experience you have, and you know, you come up with classes, and you come up with with what people need from you. And then if you have like, do you have a social media or an email list or anything like that?
I definitely am going to have an email list after this.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
I do have we have a Facebook we have like a Facebook page for the store and for the magic school. Um, I it's like I think we have enough. I think we have like kind of like enough traffic. I don't know like what's enough, but it's like I think there's like I think some of like the thing is I am not communicating with those people with moderators things like that in groups. And you know, I think similarly there are some topics that we get in those groups. So especially with in my field of study, which is Vodou, you know, that's kind of really goofy stuff. Just like there can be.
Yeah.
So it's a little tricky for me to decide like is this a beginner question that I have to even address, or is it so goofy that it's you know like I guess it's going to have to be up to my discernment though. But
Well, you could do, I mean, you're like, I can only imagine, right? Like, I just, I don't know anything about that particular tradition really, and I'm fascinated by it. And I don't know whether I've been, like, blocked, but I, I, you're probably not the first practitioner that I've met like that, you know, that is genuine. But um, I've definitely come across a lot of the other ones, right? And you know, um, but like, you could start with doing your tradition and your community a service by starting with, like, dispelling the myths, right? You
Mhm.
know, and get those really, really goofy bullshit ones, and you know, just the most basic, like, you know, the questions that have you, like, rolling your eyes of, like, do people really, yes, people really do think those things, they really do ask those questions. um I did a similar one with over on the Irish pagan school. Like, I kind of started with, like, where I am with the Irish she tradition, you know, and kind of trying to give, like, a real, because, like, you know, I'm kind of like, I'm obviously very entrenched in that with my culture and my tradition, and it was a lot of that goofy stuff, right? So like I do feel your pain, right? Um, but I realized after a while, like after about 2 or 3 years of running that classes, I was like, I'm missing a beat here, you know, because there's people who are just not ready for now, there's people who are, right? Definitely. But we need to go back a couple of steps, you know. So I started the Irish Mythical Creatures class, and I started the Fairy 101, which literally entailed me Googling frequently asked questions for fairies, right? And getting a list and picking the I'm not going to say they're stupid questions, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And like if people genuinely don't have that information, you know, and again, I'm trying to approach it with, I'm not a very compassionate person, but like I do try. I really, really try, right? You know, like if somebody has genuinely never come across anything outside their own culture, their own experience, their own town in some cases, right? Like, you know, they just genuinely have no experience of the things that are like so fundamental that you're breathing them in every day, right?
Yeah.
So it's that, in meditation we call it beginner's mind, right? Where, you know, you're approaching things with a beginner's mind, and it's very easy for us, you know, to kind of to roll our eyes at those goofy questions and those, you know, without kind of having that, well, like, where was I when I was 16? Or, you know, like, and if I mean, when I was 15 and I started having weird experiences, I like, if Google had been around at that point, like all those questions, all like, does a fairy have wings? Like, are they small? You know, like seriously, like all of those questions that, like, if you didn't know, then how would you know, right? Yeah. So So I would say take it back a couple of steps, go in and spend some time in those Facebook groups, and, you know, spend some time again with that beginner's mind, you know, talk to moderators, talk to people, offer your own service, offer your own expertise, even if it's difficult at times. Like, I stay in some of the Celtic pagan groups, I stay in some of the Morrigan groups. In fairness, I have had to leave some of them just for my own sanity, right? But there's a couple of them that, you know, are well moderated, and, you know, people are kind of doing their best. You still get, in any big group, you still get a lot of bullshit there, but as long as there's somewhere that, you know, that you're not damaging your own damaging your own calm, to actually be able to spend some time in, right? And this is very much me projecting my own experiences on this. I do not have a lot of patience at the best of times. But if you can find a group or two and, you know, start to contribute and just help out a bit, then you'll start to see the patterns. And that's really what you're looking for, is the patterns. So you're not trying to get caught up in specifics. You're kind of riding the waves of social media, you know, just seeing what's coming up. And I mean, do it like, say, right, for 15 minutes a day, I'm going to go into XYZ group, and just note down, you know, take note of what questions or any impressions you're getting, or, you know, if you're skimming through the posts, like just how it's making you feel as well, you know, because that's relevant too, because you're looking to connect to the material as well, you know. Like, I'm not saying just go and teach on topics that mean nothing to you either, because, you know, as teachers, we want to give heart and soul, right? We want to, as content creators, we want to be putting ourselves into it. So, like, what's appealing to you? And like the other side of that is, like, what do you want to teach on, or what do you want to create content on, you know? And you can find a balance, you know. But I would say for any tradition that you know, that suffers from um a general
Misunderstanding of it.
misunderstanding. Yes, that's a very kind way. That's much kinder than what was coming up in my brain. Thank you. For any tradition that suffers from misunderstanding, on a large scale like that, you can never go wrong with dispelling the myths, basic 101 content, because if nothing else, then you can always build on it. You can always refer people back to it. You can, it becomes a kind of a foundation or a bedrock, and other people start making use of it as well. And that's how we change some of that misunderstanding too, because you've got that bigger picture going on, right? So like, even though myself and Morgan Daimler are kind of regularly on text message, like butting our heads against the wall of like, oh, are we really still having to have these conversations, right? Yes, we do still have to have those conversations, but I can honestly say after 10, 15, 20 years of having those conversations, don't panic, right? After, there are less of them, and when I have those conversations, there's more resources I can point people to, so I don't have to always do the work either, and that's important too, that if we all take a little bit of it, if we all take a share, if we all start having these conversations and doing these work and creating content that is quality and right and in right relationship with the truths of what we're doing, and then again, it makes a better world. And I'll get off my soapbox now, but yeah. So
May I ask another question?
yes.
So I'm also an author, and I'm trying to figure out. So I write pamphlets, mostly smaller books, because Vodou is an oral tradition. So I don't want to be the person writing down and like making it set in stone that this is now a thing. But I need to figure out a way to like write like a standard book, right, as opposed to like a pamphlet. Do you have any tips or advice that you'd be willing to share with me?
Yes, there is a very good author right now, and this is, she's created the resources, so I don't have to. Joanna Penn is her name, Penn. That's her real name. She's an English author, and if you go online, I know she has ebooks. I don't do it today because we're coming into the 1st of May, and there's a big strike on with workers, and we don't want to be supporting the evil empires, right? But online, I know that she has ebooks, or you can order paper copies of how to write nonfiction. And why I'm recommending them is because your structure is going to be really important. And when you're writing a nonfiction book, if you can get that structure right and get it kind of get that step-by-step process that you can follow, then you can write any book, so definitely look her up as a resource. The other pro tip I have is get yourself a pad of Post-its and a Sharpie, right, and start brainstorming, right, and just write a different idea on every Post-it, right, and put them on the wall. I actually have, you can't see it here, but on the door here beside me, because I'm just finishing a book on Maeve, and my book on the She that I promised them is due to start tomorrow. So this is what I'm doing instead of finishing my book on Maeve. So when I get fucking lightning on my ass, it's you're welcome. Right. But regardless, I do have to start my book tomorrow on the She. And what I did was I actually went onto onto my Facebook page, I think, and I asked people what their top questions about it would be. Like, for anybody who's not familiar, the She is the Irish fairy tradition. She is actually the mounds that are the connectors to the other world originally, but the She have come to mean the people of the mounds. So sorry, I realized I was using terminology that people might not be familiar with. So I collected those questions and I did the Post-it plan in that way. But you can do it that way. You can brainstorm your own topics, like what are your frequently asked questions? What are the myths that you need to dispel? What are the ones that make you roll your eyes? And all of that can go into your book. Stick it all out on your Post-its, put it on a wall, put it on a door, move it around, and you start to get a sense then of like a visual sense. I find it much easier, and I'm a pen and paper kind of person. Like, I love my journals. I have my journal open here in front of me. I literally, it's my external brain, not literally but figuratively maybe. but but it's very important to me is the point I'm trying to make. But the other thing is, you know, you can then take the post-its and you can start mapping them out into a journal, and you know that can become then your little resource that you use as a guide as you're going through, you know. And it just, most people are quite, you know, if they have something visual, if they have something tangible, if they have the hand-eye coordination, it's just easier to get, you know, it's kind of like a mind map, but a mind map that you can move around, right? So I found that very, very useful when I'm starting any big project. It's how I start out, you know, content for my programs that I teach, that like the bigger ones, for my books, for meal planning, which my family hates. You know, I'm the post-it queen. I have an Amazon forest and post-its around me at all times. But yeah, it's there is. I'm pretty sure. I think I first, just to give credit where credit's due, I think I first came across it because I was doing a kind of a mind map version of this in my journal. But I think I came across the post-it method by from a guy called Pat Flynn, who is does he run his he does all like the affiliate marketing stuff and everything, but he's an author and he's good. He has a YouTube channel and various other things. But I think it was just to give credit, I think that's the first place that I ever saw the post-it system. It's not my idea. But yeah, so I would say Joanna Penn, look up Pat Flynn's video if you need any more, but kind of mind map your idea. And as you're going through your, you know, when you're doing, to go back to the first part, you know, about ideas for creating content, like you can have a content wall. And actually that's something that I was saying to John the other day, like he's very resistant to the post-it plan, very resistant. But what I was saying is if somebody asks you a question or, you know, and you don't have time to do it, just write it on a post-it and stick it on the wall. And then basically we have a content wall that when we're doing our weekly emails, or, you know, we're doing our next YouTube video, or we're trying to figure out, you know, what do I want to teach class on, or whatever it is, right? You know, you literally have a wall full of ideas there, you know, and it does build up over time. You know?
I really like how you're telling me to look at the like really beginning stuff, because I sometimes think that I should overlook that. I need to write for something else, but if I don't write for that, what can I do? So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. I was actually talking to somebody. It's a lesson that's fresh in my mind, because I was talking to somebody who was very in one of my groups, who was very much freaking out about, you know, they wanted to write a book on the Brehon law system, which is the native Irish traditional legal system. But in the context of like the social justice and activism work that they were doing, and how it's relevant. And I was like, that's totally fascinating, and I really want to read that book, and you should totally write it. And you know, but she was like, but I'm not an academic, I'm not a scholar, I'm not this, I'm not that. Who, you know, who am I to be writing this book? And you know, we talk about imposter syndrome and all those kind of things, but you know, my response to her, and it was very much kind of bringing me back to that beginner's mind, because my response to her was like, you know, you don't have to write the book for the experts in your field, right? That's not necessarily the book that you're writing. You're writing it for the people who are, you know, 2, 3, 4 years before you, or, you know, who are where you were when you started. You know, write it for those people and build up from there, absolutely. But like, if those resources that you needed when you were starting are not available, then fucking write them, you know. That's why I've written every single book, is because I didn't have it when I needed it. You know, every class that I've created is something that I needed. It's not all about me. I know I'm not the only one who needs it, but you know, there are people. And another very good kind of lesson in that for me happened when my very first book, Irish Witchcraft from an Irish Witch, went out of print quite a few years ago now, but I got the rights back for it. It was with an American publisher, and I requested the rights back and got them. Great. And then it was kind of like this kind of long-term project of, oh, I must get that, I must republish that, I must. And people, like, I get emails about that every single day. And it got to the point where I was like, why am I so resistant to this? Like, why am I so, like, I was blocked. I realized I was blocked, like, because I was doing nothing on it. And having a conversation with a friend of mine, thanks Victoria, if you ever watch this, but you know, her point was that, you know, she was asking me like, what's wrong with the book? And I was like, I'm actually a little bit embarrassed about it because, you know, I was like 24 when I wrote it, and you know, I was coming out of traditional Wicca and I was only finding my feet with my own tradition, and I was still kind of dealing with a lot of the pagan stuff that I was, you know, and she was like, but like, how many people are dealing with that right now, you know? And that's the book that they needed. That's the book that they still need. And there isn't another book that has met that need exactly, you know? So like, republish the fucking book, you know? So I'm still quite resistant and I'm still feeling it, but I am in the process. I'm very close to republishing that book. So but yeah, it's about going back to that those beginner levels and making sure that it's right from the ground up, you know. And I think when we're further on in our tradition and we're still seeing those, you know, that bullshit mountain that we've come out of, but it's still there for a lot of other people and they're getting stuck in it. You know, that's when we really have to kind of take that responsibility, I think, not to put pressure on you, but like take that responsibility to go back and make sure those resources are available.
You're so right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Welcome. So do you know what you're doing next? Besides, if anybody else needs to start a mailing list, go back and watch the other videos on this playlist, because we have definitely gone over that a couple of times, and we will absolutely keep going over it because it is very, very important for your business practice. So that's the first thing you're going to do, Joseph, right?
Delivery.
Yeah, awesome. And then you're going to start group surfing and, you know, post-it compiling, and Joanna Penn then is a good resource to pick up on, and Pat Flynn if you want to, and start mapping out, you know, your beginner content and what kind of book you want to write and all that. Can I just make another suggestion, because I'm aware, I kind of resonated when you said about your tradition being an oral one. So we're not under the same, like Irish paganism is a living tradition, but it wouldn't be necessarily a closed tradition. I'm not sure if you would class yours as a closed tradition. Ours is kind of like semi, like, I believe that you have to be taught by somebody in our tradition to really get an idea of you know, the context for it and the culture, and you at least have to immerse yourself in the broader culture to understand the spiritual context, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not projecting or presuming or anything about your tradition, but if there's any kind of similarity there, just the oral nature of it, you know, something very practical that you could start doing is like live online sessions while your shop is closed, you know. You don't necessarily have to record it. Whoever shows up, shows up. But you can do live teaching. You can pass on that oral tradition using the tech that you have. And, you know, you will get people who start showing up. You know, if you run something like that once a week through Zoom, you can use the free Zoom app because you're not recording anything. You could record a section of it so that you have some content, you know, that's, start a YouTube channel, you know, you could do that. Repurposing that content is a good idea as well. But you could have an off camera bit, you know, you can have a, whoever's here gets this bit, you know, and like make it paid. If they send you payment through PayPal, you know, you're sending them the link, the invite to the Zoom chat, you know, it's relatively simple to set up. But it means that you can pass on the reality of your tradition in a very authentic way, but not like, I don't know, I really resonated with what you were saying. Like, I kind of, ours is a little bit different because I kind of feel that there's so much that we need to change. I need to be on record, but I
Right.
also really feel the oral nature of it, and there's a lot that happens in person or off camera. You know, like even in my classes, there's live chats and stuff that, you know, that don't get recorded, and we do our community sessions, we do our live at 5 sessions, which are running free. You know, we're doing it as a community service. We record a little bit of it just to have, again, just to have some content, but you know, you can absolutely flip that into a paid model, like, you know, just keeping the doors open, you know, for, or like, everybody understands that your premises is closed down right now. They can't just come in and have a chat with you, you know, so you're effectively making office hours, right? So like once a week you can do an online version of that, you know, and people can come in and, you know, you can do a fucking tip jar, you can do a whatever, you can scale it, you know, or just charge them a set fee. I have no problem charging for, you know, if you have the skills, you have the experience, you've put in the time, effort, energy, you should be fucking charging for it, you know. And then if somebody can't pay, give them a free pass, you know, that's fine too. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And this is why it always goes longer than 15 minutes, because I have too many ideas. Yeah, but hopefully it's useful to you. So yeah, okay. So anybody else who wants to get in on this free consultation action, I don't do them all the time, but if you want to get on the list, go to loraobrien.business, and on the contact page, you will see an option for taking, if you want to ask a free question, and that goes to the list that I offer the free consultations to. Hopefully that makes sense. There's also a video on this channel that explains how it all works. So, and a blog post on loraobrien.business. So go there, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video.